There we are live. See? Nope. It wasn't on black screen when I set the broadcast. So there were no technical difficulties. Just the wrong button got pushed. Or actually, it wasn't set to the right button. So we don't start till 4 o'clock. My gosh. So last night I was at the club meeting, Dawns of Arizona. And hello, everyone. And then we finished, got enough here sometime after 10 o'clock, 10:30 last night, and I couldn't sleep. It was one of those toss and turn, couldn't relax. Too much caffeine, too much nicotine, and too much nervous energy, and I had to get up first thing in the morning and run to Discovery Camp. So then I ran to Discovery Camp. We did Discovery Camp. All went well. Got finished with Discovery Camp, and I had 2 jobs to do. So even though Discovery Camp, we were able to get out of there early, then I had to go into Scottsdale and North Phoenix and do 2 jobs before I could get home. So I just came in the door 5 minutes ago. So literally, yes, I came in the door, grabbed a glass, poured my drink out of the plastic cup into the glass, walked in here, and started things. So yes, I didn't hit the... forgot to hit the black screen button to start. So it wasn't a technical glitch, it was just a tired glitch. But then we went to the countdown and we don't start till 4, so there you go. Anyhow, so we'll see who's all here. We got a definitely dim, dark day in here. It's overcast, it's supposed to rain, so we'll see what happens. But we're all here, so everybody's in. Sir Doug's here, of course. There you go. And Robert's here. And Robert's all impatient. You know, it's 3:59. Come on, I'm not going to start till 4. And then Glenn's here. Legend in the dark. It wasn't a legend in the dark. I was here. I was just in the dark. It was actually, there was light here. Yeah, and see, then... I don't know when those things drop. I don't know if they schedule drop. I think YouTube schedules those to drop. Trevor just puts them in. I have to ask Trevor. I don't know if he schedules them at anything. It depends how many there are, too, because there can be multiples and they drop at different times of the day. So, hello and hola, everybody. We are here going to bed. Well, listen later. Thanks for everything. That's all right. You were the first one in and the first one to leave. So, anyways, Discovery Camp's done for today. So then I gotta finish everything up tonight. Still have some work stuff to do, and then I'm going to basically try to wind down, get the nicotine, the caffeine, and the nervous energy out. Because tomorrow morning, bang. First thing we got to do is be out at Papago Park. So for a Dawns of Arizona picnic. So myself, Kim Johnson, Trevor will be there. A bunch of us will be out there. We're going to take a little short hike up to Hole in the Rock. Doesn't matter, rain or shine. So there waiting the winter times. You were good. I was mapping. I haven't seen any... Well, it's sprinkled on us this morning. We got some sprinkles a couple times, but that's it. Hey, Bobby. Yeah, there's Bobby. And Bobby's not only with us on live, but Bobby's with us on live in Arizona. So while we're in Arizona, he's on the other side of the county, but he is in Arizona. So there you go. Welcome to Arizona, Bobby. So kids were good today. It was very interesting because I guess the teachers will occasionally, for the 3rd and 4th grade, have them watch the videos from our YouTube channel to tell them some of the history of the superstitions and stuff, and tell some stories. Sorry, boys at Mysteries. They don't use you guys. They use us, and they don't know I'm supposed to be there, so it's weird to the kids because the kids are sitting there, and Greg Davis does a little talk. And once Greg Davis is done with his talk, then then they turn it over to me for the teaching gold panning, and I talk to the kids and stuff. And what really is funny is the kids all suddenly realize they're looking at the guy from YouTube, and they're more impressed with me being on YouTube and an influencer than anything else. You're an influencer. You're on YouTube. you are, so that's always funny. So being recognized by third and fourth graders for what we do on YouTube. So that reminds me, while on the lives, I've got to clean it up a little. Even though I do a great job on Chasing Legends on live occasionally, I let things out, and I should clean that up. And I told the teachers, I said, let the kids watch the live stuff. So, but I will try to clean that up, because if they're out there, your new home, yes, there you go, your new home. So, there you go. So that was kind of that. Someone told me Legend of the Superstition Mountains is playing this weekend. Greg Davis said something's playing on Channel 8 as well tomorrow. Superstition Mountain related all day. But then someone else told me it was Legend of the Superstition Mountains is playing all day tomorrow. So I don't know which is which, or which way's up, or which one's which, or exactly what this is about. So I don't know if it's Frank and myself and Woody and the gang, or if which channel and whatnot. But Greg Davis claims it's PBS Channel 8, and it's all day. And then someone else told me they just saw commercials run for us and do that. So, to get back to the kids like it. It's probably the only time they really get to gold pan or ranch, rope, do a lot of this kind of stuff. Some of them, the only time they get to hike in the mountains. So, it's good for them to give them a taste. They get off those buses and are looking up at the Dayside Cliffs and stuff, and there's... So, it's really special for them. And it's cool for us, and they're generally really well behaved. So... we went through Thomas Glover's books, since I have so many, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I'm having fewer and fewer, because this year another thing was, for the parents, the people that chaperoned, and the teachers, I took out cases of books and make sure all the parents and the teachers get one of Thomas's book. So that's kind of a neat thing too, is they get a little prize for that, and then they can read about some of the stories Thomas's opinion point of view, but a nice enough book. So Treasure Trails is getting out there. If you can't sell it, well, guess what? Give it to Wayne. He'll give it away. So I've probably dispersed 200 or 300 so far. I got rid of the first, God, how many was it? The first 1,000 I got rid of, and now I'm probably a few hundred into the next 1,000 or so. So I will be the #1 distributor of Thomas's book. If he only knew. Well, at least people are. You and Josh Feldman could take over the search. I want nothing to do with Blind Frog Ranch at this point. I didn't really want anything to do with it when they wanted me to do it, which is, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I told them to get Terry Carter or Eric DeLille. I said that would be more up their alley. That's not my thing. And then my whole thing was just money. If you're going to pay me an exorbitant amount of money and pitch me something, don't lie to me. And that might have been the killer of it, is just don't lie to me. I'll do anything, I'll be your Huckleberry if you pay me enough. And they came back to me and tried to negotiate. And I was like, no, this is, if you think you need someone, a face or a name or something, then I'll do this. But it's not my alley. It's not my thing. If I got to play to this stuff, you're going to pay me. And that fell through. And then they went with whoever else. I think they got Eric to do it finally, the geologist. And he did fine. And I will watch it and support it. I will support Josh, and Ron Feldman will be on there in the next season. And Eric and anyone else I know that has anything to do with the show, I'll support it and watch it. And I'll try to always watch my opinion of it, because it is such a poorly edited and done show. And that's one of the reasons, being able to look, what have they done, about 3-4 seasons, watching every season how badly it's just done and processed, I wouldn't want to be on it, because it's just a mess. There was the one time Josh is sitting there and he has his backpack on, it's next to him, it's not in the sign, then it's back on his back, and each time they cut to him talking, his backpack's magically moving around. And it's like, continuity matters for something. And if you're just sit there idly watching it because people you know are in it, but you're not really, bam, that's problematic. And then that makes me always feel like you're telling the audience they're stupid. And I don't like that. I don't want to go there. So I would have nothing to do with it. There's nothing anybody would need from me over there. There's nothing I could bring to it. I don't even know if I'd want to go visit because it's a very small area. Like I've pointed out, Blind Frog Ranch, Oak Island, both those areas, Skinwalker Ranch, most of those places are smaller than Garden Valley in the Superstition Mountains, just Garden Valley itself. So you're dealing with such small, tight areas that they're actually working in. It doesn't have an interest. There's not much room to get away. And I had more room at the Quarter Circle U Ranch to hide and run around and explore than I would on one of those shows. So there you go. Thank you to the Dons. Yeah, no, we had a good time, and Kim Johnson was out there, Greg Davis, myself. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Greg Welsh, someone I've known since grade school, was out with us. I don't know if Greg listens to this, but we'll give him a shout out. But we had a nice crew up in Gold Padding, so, and the kind of hardy crew is myself, Kim Johnson, and Greg Davis generally. We're generally the core group that's there constantly every Friday. But no, it goes well. The kids like it. It's fun to watch the kids, and then I do a little geology thing telling them about the calderas, the supervolcanoes, and how gold comes from outer space and that stuff. And, one of the teachers got it right today, knew gold comes from space. And but it's little history lessons in there. I don't want to treat them like with silly stuff. So Greg can do the legend thing, which is kind of a ad hoc Jacob Waltz thing for about 12 to 15 minutes and kind of a rundown. And then my thing is to kind of give them things that this is cool, show them how to gold pan, but then explain some of this stuff and all. Hey, Dallas, we missed you out there. You'd have a blast with us. But there you go. So it's a cool thing, and like the ranching, they get to watch the brands, and they get a piece of wood with a brand on it, and then they get to rope, they get hiking, then they have Liberty Wildlife brings out some falcons and owls and stuff the kids can check out and stuff, and sometimes snakes, and then they go on a hike, and then they learn about indigenous peoples. There's a thing there, and then they get to do some pottery and stuff. So all that's really cool. Anyway, do you know any more information, location of Jay Polka's old camp? I would if I could go through and look at the book. Jay Polka's camp's got to be in Helen Corbin's Bible map, and I think Curse of the Dutchman, because I think it's marked on Tom Collenborn's map in those books. So if you look at the center spread of Helen Corbin's book, I think Polka's camps 1 and 2 are mentioned in there. And then I'm pretty sure that's in the gatefolds or in the inside covers of Curse of the Dutchman. I don't know if it's both sections of the map, and that's one of his, but I'm pretty sure the Polka stuff is on there. So if you have either of those books, if you don't, I will. And that's one of the problems with this tight timeline is I'm not able to. I wanted to grab that Bigfoot book. There's stuff that we talk about each week, and it's in the back of my head, but I can't get to it because I don't really have any time to grab anything down before I come sit down here. I literally walk through the house. The first thing I have to do is give dogs treats. If I don't give dogs treats, I may be killed in my sleep. So I give the dogs treats, greet them, put stuff down, grab a glass, pour stuff in it, put it in here, and then just start it up. So there's not much time to spare before we go live. I'm not going to move the time, and like I said, the last Discovery Camp, because we load the bunker, I'm pretty sure that one we won't be live. We'll run something else instead, so you'll see something and know we're not doing live. Something will be programmed. So they finally got the Dollar General truck. Yeah, that guy. Wouldn't you, when you hit the dirt before you get to Fish Creek Hill, start thinking this may not be the right road? And then once you start doing the hairpins going down Fish Creek Hill, wouldn't there, when you get to the gate at the top of the hill by the lookout point, look over at all that and say, I don't think I need to check this, because you have to be realizing this is not the right direction. And you can see the road then on the GPS and realize that's not going to work. How he got it to the bridge blows my mind. That was some driving. And he got it down there, and you know what? He would have been probably, I think, all the way to Roosevelt, good to go if he would have got across that bridge. Unfortunately, the bridge was the thing that got him. And yes, fortunately, they got that off of there. It's always something, isn't it? We get a fire, it's closed. Oh, now we got rain and the boulders washed out and took out the road. Okay. It's always something down there. So they get it open finally, and some guy hangs a truck up on it. So there you go. Wouldn't you hate to be the people that were came in right behind him and got all the way down and realized you had to go all the way back up? Oh, okay. So there, yeah. So that guy wins Idiot of the Month. Not good for him. So, and I'm not even going to ask if everybody can hear me, because guess what? Obviously, everybody can. I heard that he had. Okay, well, I could care less. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he was white, born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he was 8th generation American. He's an idiot. There's no culture, nothing to that. It's just an idiot. And you know what? Don't tell me I'm wrong, because we watch people drive into big puddles of water and lose their cars down the washes all the time here. And they're not from anywhere else. They live here, and they're still idiots. They're just idiots. All right. So they will probably hold a Dollar General over the building over the LDM. Are there lava tube style caves in the super? Yes, there are some. There are a handful. There's in Fish Creek, in fact. Now that you can get there, there's some up the canyon in there. Yes, there are some lava tube ones in a few sections. So, and there's the limestone caves. It's a pretty strange, because of the volcanic caldera stuff. Think about it. And I think one of the ones that George Colomborn found up around Bluff Springs was a lava tube, because it widened out, and then it had an area you had to go across it into the next section. There was a third section. So I'd take it was a lava tube. And I think he found one over by Weaver's Needle that I've never located. I've never heard anybody locate it. There was a crack where you could see down into a part of it. And he looked down and he could see it. And I don't know if he could have got in at that access point, but he talked about it. And it would have been on the south side of Weaver's Needle. And I never found it. I went out there and looked all over the place for that place, and I never found that one. Are there... Okay, I already answered that one. So now it's time to drink to the Bobs. Bob Ward, Bob Shoes, Bobby Bunzel. There we go. There we go. So yes, and if I trip along the way here, yeah, Cave of a Thousand Eyes, yeah, that could be one too. Even though that is in a limestone deposit, so that's a limestone cave, because that's limestone back in there. I watched the J.W. Galloway, John Wayne video. Pretty cool treasure hunter, good video. Good. And he appreciates it too. He usually watches. I don't think he ever talks or comments or says anything, but he does watch these, so he usually lets me know. Cheers, Bob's. Okay, and what's the next? Didn't George Colomborn see lava on one of the cracks? No, that was someone else saw it and told it to Tom. It was a woman. And I think he wrote it briefly in an article. I talked to him about it. I always want to say it was on the main mountain, somewhere over around the main mountain somewhere. But he said she talked to him and she wanted to know what he thought. She thought there was something serious was going to happen. There's going to be a problem. And Tom never could find the spot, but she talked about it and said she could look in and she could see it glowing really deep down. And she was worried like there was going to be an eruption or something. And he said he believed her because she was very convincing. And he said he talked to some people and said it was very much a possibility. But that was Tom's story of some woman, and I don't know if he could identify her or not. I don't know. Galloway just messaged me. Oh. He's not watching us now, and he's asking about the bridge. JW, what's up with you, man? Why aren't you with us here? You would get all your questions answered. See, so yeah, and that was an interesting story, but I think it was just a story within something else. I think, Tom, if you look up Columborn Chronicles, I think it's in a story about the calderas and the volcanic activity and all. One of the things I've asked a couple of geologists is how come no geologist has ever written a book on the superstitions? Because you think with the calderas, the supervolcanoes, all the different zones of mineralization, with what's at the southeast end with silver and copper, and then at the northwest end with gold and silver, and you would think that definitely the way things run everything out there, you would think that someone would write an academic book concerning it. It'd be very important. All I've ever found, I have several books, one of them I can't find anymore, but they'll just have a chapter on some of the stuff briefly. But yeah, I always wondered why nobody really looked at it and talked to it. So the mountains are dormant, not extinct. Yeah, I would say they're dormant. You can feel the rumble. You'll still feel it. The first time you ever feel it, usually it happens because you're in a quiet area and you're alone. And it sounds different from different areas, but you can't pin where the noise is. You're just kind of like, it just is there. And it's like thunder or rumbling, booms, and you can hear different. It varies. I've heard it dozens of times. When I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, you heard it a lot more. Back in the days when they dynamited too, but you could separate the two noises. The last time I really heard it clearly was with Randy, and we didn't capture it. We thought we could capture it on the camcorder we had, but the problem, it was so windy, and we uploaded it. It's when we're going up on Bluff Springs, and if you watch it, you see me say something to him and says, I'm like a Hemi 426 Hemi starting, because it was a big rumbling noise, and we're looking around trying to figure out where this noise come from, because it came from somewhere, the mountain where we were, and we're looking around going, there was no echo from somewhere. It was just there. And that was Randy. Might have been Randy's first one, but we both stopped. And it is on. We did end up. I was filming Randy, and it's on film, but you can't hear it because the wind was wicked that day, and those things had terrible microphones. So it is not. It is dormant. Didn't you hear whistling noises? I've heard the whistling noises, but there's so many different things. And there's hot springs. You got to remember, there's hot springs in the superstitions too. So it's close enough, or there are enough vents that there's the hot springs are back in there. The Apache out there were making bullets with the silver green. Good documentary on that. Awesome. Silver broke $100 an ounce today. There you go. Silver's finally coming up, where if you find some silver, you might actually... the problem with silver, though, is too... Let's say you find a nice little vein of gold, and you could chunk out, and you might get some decent nuggets. And you might have, you might find some placer. And even if you find dust, the purity there, you're able to take that and very easily, without having a kiln or doing anything else, take it in someplace, have them check it out, and they will pay you for it. Silver, a completely different thing, unless you find big, pure chunks of silver. So the problem is most of the silver you find is within the matrix, and with everything you have to do with it. I am not into that process. So rocks I have with silver running through them and stuff are rocks that go sit on shelves. I don't know if I have one. I have one that has a really nice piece. I'm going to have to bring that in and put it on the shelf. Change my shelves up. But, I have one that has a nice piece. It has copper flecks through it. It has a little bit of gold in it. And it has a nice silver vein running from it. And it's from the Silver King. So it's one of those really cool ones where you can take that one piece and show somebody how it matrixes, and it's in a dark quartz, so it's a cool looking rock. But I got that from the Silver King probably 12, 13, 14 years ago. It was one of the coolest samples I got out of there. I found I know where the place is where I found it. I got a few other pieces that had touches in it, and I gave those away. But what was funny was everybody was going through rock piles and tailing piles, and I went up over this hill and went over this spot, and Frank and I were looking around, and there was down in this hole, you could tell where they'd been digging and stuff. And I dropped over in there, and Frank and I tossed some pieces up to Frank, and there was those pieces. And I told Frank, there's a whole bunch of it here. And so we grabbed a couple handfuls, went back to Jack San Felice, said, Jack, is it cool if we take these home and on? He said, yeah. So we threw them in the truck, and I don't know how much Frank got, but yeah, I had the one good chunk that is really, really super nice. I think I kept one smaller piece, and then I had a bunch of smaller ones that I just gave to people, because the matrix was cool, and it's cool to own something that's kind of outside the. It's kind of cool still because it's from the Silver King. So here's a piece of raw ore from the Silver King that wasn't processed or anything. It just came out of one of the pits. So that was a cool one. Right place, right time. Right time for break, because I think actually they were working with Woody DeLille and Magnuson, and Frank and I didn't have anything to do, and we knew we had about 45 minutes to an hour to kill, and we just wandered off looking around and figured we'd just kind of go through some different areas up on the hillsides, and that's how we found that. So very cool. I know exactly where that spot is today. So, and it would be cool to go there and see if there was some other really cool pieces like that, because again, there's the value in it to me is just really something cool on the shelf. I mean, there's some gold in it, but it's still not going to be worth a lot to you. But it's very cool to have on a shelf and then take down for someone and show them how those matrices work and how it can be in the rock, and especially a piece of dirty quartz like that. Why is nothing done with the Silver King? And that's all pure red tape from the government. Jack is hung up and his hands are tied, and they have so many problems. There's multiple partners involved. And every time they try to get something done, they come in and want them to do another big volume of paperwork. And he's been working on that for probably 15, 20 years. Bob Schuss used to actually own that. And Jack is a partner on it. I don't know what's ever going to happen. I think they're just doing the bureaucracy thing till those guys die off and nobody wants it. And then the copper company goes in and takes it. But, Jack, I think, owned the tailing piles at one time. And I told him, why don't we just go in, take the bulldozer, knock them over, take a bunch of the stuff, go through it, take it out to a rock show and sell pieces from the Silver King, because people will buy it. And there's some really nice crystals and Criscola and really nice stuff in there. And I told him, you'll make more money off of a truckload of that stuff than probably anything else you're doing. At least get something back out of it. And never happened. I don't know why, but yeah, he did try to file a plan. They didn't want them to transport it to process or something, but they're not allowed to process it there. They're basically screwing them over, which was a big thing when we filmed the TV show, because he talked about a lot of that for an hour or two, and then the next day he realized he had really been very critical to all the people he needed to approve his permits. And Jack came back in and said, I'm really, really sorry, but I would really, could you not use any of that stuff? Because he thought, shit, he just blew it for himself. And they were cool about it. They didn't use a bunch of that stuff. Because he got pretty animated. I don't, it wasn't wrong for him to be upset, because they just, okay, I filled all this paperwork out and I paid for all this. Okay, so can I start? Well, we have new codes and this has changed, and here, Jack, here's another pile of paperwork to get through. Was silver found along Queen Creek? Yeah, there would have been silver down in there. Wonder if they will reopen the Raymart mine. Anything's possibility, but every time they talk about it, that's nowhere in the clear and close future, I would say. They like to promise. You remember, they'll promise, definitely the people out in Superior and those areas. they will do things and say, hey, we're going to create 1,500 jobs, and this is going to do this, and we're going to pump money in, and here we're going to make sure there's a new Dairy Queen, and they get everybody to get on board. Boom. And then nothing really ever happens. They might hire 50 people to do something, and it's a sad thing that's happened time and time again. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And the people that work there or still are employed and stuff are not going to criticize or talk about it. And then the people, felt like something was crawling in my shoe, but and then the other people in the town hoping to get a job or something, or they're going to be careful to criticize. And then you have people like Jack, who have vested interests out there and working with people that work with the mining companies, and they don't want to cause any bumps in the road. So they get away with a lot. They get away with an awful lot, and it's disappointing because the elected officials that you think are elected to protect us generally don't. They're seem to be looking. They think about it. You can talk money one side or the other, but they always talk the economics of jobs and this and that never happen. And they do all that to kind of make you think that it will be all right. You'll benefit from this. And it never does. But the only person that probably makes money besides the mining companies are the politicians that get them through and through to everything. Traveling from Superior work is no joke. Driving 2 hours one way right now. I wouldn't want to do that. And one of the problems is kind of like res life. I know with a couple people I knew who had family down in Superior, Globe, and those areas, it's just, where do you go? How do you get out? What do you can't, how do you get away from it? You're just kind of stuck generation after generation. And I had a friend whose family had done ranching and done some mining and worked for the mines back in the 20s and 30s. And he's like, yeah, their children's children still are in the same thing, waiting and stuff. So, and he got out, but he got away from it because he said it just was going nowhere. But he said most of them they'll end up in Phoenix or somewhere else if they can retire, if they manage to get a pension in retirement. But it's just one of those sad facts of life. You can't beat the media of that type of stuff, and then you can't trust everything else to tell you anything one way or the other. So it is what it is. It's one of the reasons Frank always told me, we can placer, we can go look for things, we can think about putting a claim in, but you know what, it's better just to get in there and get stuff out of there and make sure there's no claim, start the process, and then just close it up and get out of there before we have to file. Because one, nobody knows where you're at, and you can kind of cover up. People will just look and say, well, somebody might have been here digging. But number two, you don't have to go through all these other problems. If there's, say you file a mining claim and then you find out, oh crap, there's a old lode mine. It's only 10 feet, but there was guys had this old lode mine claim on the other side of our claim. Well, now they want you to go through a bunch of flaming hoops because there's a lode mine there, which is different than a placer claim. Much more expensive in bonding and everything else. And Frank just told me we don't want to be anywhere interested in that. We want to be able to say, before we got to dig underground or dig a tunnel, let's just dig a trench. YouTube has numerous video proclaiming paranormal events in those mountains. Is there one you feel is legitimate? Are you asking videos? Is there a video paranormal event, or there's legitimate? You'd have to give me something more specific on that. I will answer that though. When did Waltz assay his gold? Did he ever assay it? He assayed it just by eyeball. I don't think he took it down and had someone assay it. I think he knew in that matrix, he knew there was gold and they were hand cobbing it. So he was selling the gold like that. And I don't think he was like that event. I know my Stickman story, I still don't know what the hell that was. And I have the picture that I got from the Lost Dutchman store. Those two things I can't explain. and the Lost Dutchman store is no longer there. But I sometime I'll put together. We did the one story on it. Sometime I'll go through and pull all the photos I took over like 6-7 years of me revisiting the same day, time, taking pictures, trying to replicate it, and kind of walk through that. Most of the time, most of the stuff I hear, I always kind of wonder what they are as stories. You never know with people in the mountains, mentally, emotionally, different things, how they affect you. I've never felt like there was a Bigfoot or something coming upon me, or really, I'm more worried possibly of the two-legged people in there that are not that are not lizards. But most of the stuff, I think it's just people's imaginations get overrun. And yet there are ones like the girl, I can't remember her name. I wish I. Well, the problem is she wanted me to use a fictitious name in the video for her. The one that saw the orange greenish light or whatever in Peralta Canyon. She was convinced. Her and her boyfriend at that time were totally convinced. And it was a strange thing because there was nothing. She said, it was just this weird thing, and we were looking at it and trying to figure why is there this glowing light suspended there. And she said she really wanted to touch it and stuff, and the boyfriend mate pulled her back into him to keep her away from it. But that's, so you think something could have happened. That could have been some venting, something else. You don't know, but there are stories I can sit there and see possible reasons, and then there's sometimes stories that I think are just ridiculous. But I don't know, people vanishing. People get killed out there. It's practically plain sight is little in there. I don't think I've ever heard a story that I would validate that someone just vanished in plain sight. There are people that you will see on the trail and be on the trail. Sal de Gadil can do it. Alan Tree could. At one time I was like that. You would be talking to me, turn your head for a second, turn back, and we could just be in the bushes. That was just bushcraft, man. That wasn't anything paranormal. But there are guys that can move the mountains and just appear and disappear like just crazy. So I wouldn't put it to that. I'm talking about real things I've heard about and I've seen on videos of other people. And I'm always very skeptical because there's two things I know of definitively. There's a few odd things that have happened that I can't say where the person's head was at or other things. And I've heard stories that I'm not very sure of, Okay, so we're jumping all over. I've been watching you and learning for years. I hope you've learned something. If Waltz was living on the gold, he was selling eggs and stuff, but he was using the gold as like your savings account, pension plan. Well, that's the problem is there's several instances. Thomas Glover's Golden Dream talks about Waltz paid several people with gold concentrate and stuff at times. I think until the Julia thing, and he might have sent some to his sister or something, I think he wasn't trying to spread it around. I think you have the folkloric stories of Waltz drunk running around town, everybody trying to follow him in the mountains and that stuff. That guy wouldn't have lasted, and he would have been in the newspapers as well. So none of that happened. So Waltz, I think, was very shrewd, knew he had gold, he lived by himself, and I'm sure that gold did not much anything about it. He was very, very cautious how he dealt with it. So even if he had some nice pieces, I'm sure he broke it down so it was smaller. I think everything he did was very calculated. I almost broke down at Rogers Trough yesterday. Ooh, that's a long way in, and my Jeep started back up after pumping the excitement. Yeah, that would be a bad place to be because if it's late in the day, there may not be anybody out there for a long time, and that's a long walk. You would have to hope for someone from the Martins or someone to come by in a truck somewhere. Waltz had legitimate mining claims, so wouldn't that ore have been assayed? Well, those ores were assayed, possibly the gross load. Thomas Glover, probably that's in his file boxes, I'm sure. Let's see. I don't know about the Rebel or the General Grant. Those mines are known today, so you could get an assay on them, but they're not the original vein that he discovered on those. So that would be different. Someone else, most likely, when he filed those, the gross load might have been a bit different, and that he had a section of the gross load with the Big Rebel and General Grant. I'm sure either those were taken from underneath him, or he sold them, and it was probably most likely taken from underneath them. So he probably never got to the point where he started to work on it that he needed to get an assay or an assay report. You didn't need that. You just needed to file a claim. You need an assay when you're looking at something to look at, like, what's the content or what the rock is. I've never gotten an assay on anything for me personally, because if I got visible gold, it's a matter of, okay, do I want to crush this rock or sell it as is? And if it's placer gold, you're just going to sell it. I don't need an assayer. I can take it down to someone, they can look at it, and then they can let me know how much silver content or copper might be in there. So you don't need an assay report. I have assay reports from other people, and other people have asked for them to test ore for that to find stuff. So I think it's two different things, but I don't think Waltz would have needed an assay report at that time for anything he was doing. When you were and plus I don't think he wanted anybody to know really his business that much. When you were looking for known landmarks and cannot find, have you ever brought in a person unfamiliar with what you're looking at to get a full? Well, that was what Randy and I used to do. We looked at things completely differently. And I did bring people. Mom, cousin of mine, Chris Hormacio went in with me. I would bring people in the mountains who had never been in the mountains occasionally, but Randy and I had very, very different things. I knew the mountains. I kind of saw the mountains through a lens of different decades. Randy was much more fresh to the mountains. He was a stone map guy, a little bit. I won't put it all on him, but he would look for that, and I could, I'd mess with him on that stuff. Hey, look at that. There's a heart. See that? Oh, man. And I could pull that stuff, and he would bite. No, that was always the perspective. So I would say, hey, what do you think of this? And then he would look at it and he'd give me his opinion. Sometimes I listened to his opinion. He said, I don't think it's anything. But then later I would, what we would do is after trips is I would send him all my pictures. He would send me all his pictures. So that way we both had a complete thing of them. And that's the only way we would have pictures with ourselves in them. So we always did that and shared. And then he would look at pictures and go, what the hell's that? Where was that? And I said, I showed you that. He said, no, dude, you did not show me that. And I would be like, yeah, I did. We need to go back there. So sometimes you're in time and place when you're looking at something, people don't see it. And then later, once they're just relaxing at home, they're like, holy crap, I didn't really notice that way. Okay, we did that. Dallas is retracting messages. People are... I saw something on Google Earth near the Salt River. Love you show. It's very interesting. Do you still go on hikes? And would you take? I'm trying to think of one this year. It depends on the schedule of everything we're doing because, man, this year has been brutal starting out. And I know it's going to get easier, but we got to get through Discovery Camp and the outings and other things I'm doing. And then I got to get out with Frank this year. There's a couple projects we got to work on, and I got to work everything in that, but I got one in the back of my head I want to take and get people like Dallas and Kim and a bunch of us, the Dons, and then invite everybody who wants to come out to go on that trip. Because there's one in the back of my head I think would be a fun one. But yeah, when we put those invitations out for those things, the Forestry Service has been very sweet. I know those guys do check in on us, and they've been very, very nice when they see a group with myself and Greg Davis show up. They don't make us break down into smaller groups. They let us go out there and do that stuff, and that's very, very cool of them. They don't have to. Do you think the Circumperfectio map starts in Mexico or Arizona? I don't know, and I don't know if that's really a map. I've never been completely sold on that. There's so many people that got so many different things. I know, God, what's his name? James Simpson believes it's up on the Salt River there by Canyon Lake, and he shows you a version of it and all this. I'm not totally convinced of it. Sometime we'll have to put up a thing. I don't know any history on it, and a few people have told me they've seen it, But there's this old waybill about these mines and stuff, and it has directions in it. And I don't know where it starts, begins, ends. There's a little bit of a map on it. It's a very, very cool. I got photos of the original map, and it's authentic, but I have no idea where it came from. And people said, yeah, I think I've seen that before, but nobody can give me any history on it. We'll have to do one on that. Maybe I'll have Trevor do some photos of it. I've brought it to the rendezvous and showed people. And then I have my daughter translate the Spanish, which is, it's a bit of a waybill of what they pulled out of the mine and what's out there. So I don't really know. Is the 1800s boundary line of the wilderness the same as it is today? It's changed in places. It's changed because it's the national forest, and the boundaries changed a bit. So the 1800s boundary when did they make it a wilderness area? The 20s? 20s or 30s it becomes a wilderness area, but it was still open to cattle and everything. And then there was the closure of the wilderness area in the 80s, in 1980. So it's got different periods it changed. I've always looked for different maps. I never find really good Superstition mountain maps. One of the reasons I want to find those is because of more of the original place names. Tom Collenborn was really, really interested in those too. I always thought it would be so cool to see those original names they changed, because today we were discussing Peralta Canyon was Willow Canyon, and Peralta Spring was Willow Spring, and Willow Creek, which runs right through the Linesby property. And the Dons named and cut the trail that goes to Fremont Saddle. The Dons created that trail. So that trail was created for the Dons to do their hikes and pack people in up there and all. Geronimo's Cave was named by the Dons. Devil's Slide. There's so many of the place names in there. They're very old, but then the Dons started naming them in the 30s. So they've been, yes, they're very old names, but they're not as old as you think. And they had possibly other names before that, or didn't have names for them. So Geronimo's Cave, I think Greg Davis said, his uncle Art Weber said, you could still see a little bit of the walls that was at the front of the cave when they first started going up there to it. Then, of course, bringing everyone up there and doing all that, there's no trace of any of that anymore. So that was probably a walled-up cave. They had a wall or something up and around it. I've always been curious where the hell they got their water up there, if it was a seasonal spot or whatnot. People want to go hiking. Do you use Instagram? Please do. That's Trevor's thing to remind me to post there. Do you know what canyon the giant sloth was found in? No, I don't know what canyon. I would have to look it up and go through and dig through that. We have Instagram accounts, and I do. I generally kind of stay out of a lot of that stuff. As you can tell, I just post for the videos. I'm going to try to get better about posting pictures, but one of the things, like the rendezvous, this year I didn't take any pictures. I tend to promote the rendezvous, do the rendezvous, but I don't try to use the rendezvous as like a commercial enterprise, because I think that would ruin the whole idea behind it and everything. So I think it's very important that I do that. So with the rendezvous and with the Treasure Hunt of the Year awards, I like to make sure that we share a few pictures, but that's usually from Trevor. So much stuff, I'm always kind of interested in securing people's privacy. It's like guest speakers. I don't want the guest speakers. I always ask them if you want to film it, or Greg Davis likes to record the audio of them for the archives. But I don't want to film them giving presentations and then put it up. It's not I'm just not interested in trying to, I don't want to make $5 off this guy doing this on YouTube. But on the top of it, that's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is just to be there and share this information. So if you've been to the rendezvous and you've been there the last 10 years, there's a lot you've learned, and you got to talk to the people that gave the talks and stuff. And it's very interesting, and I think it's much more conducive to treasure hunters to do that. Treasure hunters have a bad habit of not wanting to be able to relax and share and say, hey, check this out. What do you think of this? And stuff. They generally want to do like, hey, I've solved it all, and here's the solution. And then when you try to not criticism, but you openly talk about it, then they start to fall apart. Like, what do you mean? You don't know. You're not a Dutch hunter. You don't understand how this works, and the sixes follow with the T's, and how that goes here, and the trance line. And oh, no, I don't. I don't really understand what you're talking about at all anymore. So, but the rendezvous's purpose is to have people kind of open their minds up and stuff. Everybody should be able to look at something with an open, fresh mind. And if you don't really buy it, then you can stop. And I've stopped people. I've learned to stop someone at a certain point going, none of this is relevant. No, your research and stuff is wrong. And then talk to them. If I have a problem with someone's stuff, I'll give them a book. I'll do this. I'll talk to them at length to try to get them. You got to go through the research center. You need to go through the archives. You need to basically do a better job. And unfortunately, I would say most of the books that come out anymore, people do a really horrible job researching. They just read a book or they pull some information off the internet and then they run with it, and they get things so wrong because of that. There's a difference between Jacob Waltz, the real person, and the Jacob Waltz of the mythology stuff. And if you want the mythology stuff, Greg Davis can tell you at Discovery Camp when he's talking to third and fourth graders. Lost Dutchman State Park guys can tell you about that stuff. If you want to go to the wrong people, that's where you get to hear that. If you want to hear the real stuff, you'll sit around with a bunch of people and you'll ask the pointed question is, did Jacob Waltz really do this? Which is what people do here. And one of the reasons I share is, yes, I put the time in, I dig out the stuff, and I tell them. And my one thing I can always back up is say, I can tell you where those documents, where that material is, because it's in one archive or another, and we've shared a lot of stuff. Because I don't think, unless I'm actively working on something, I don't care about sharing stuff. People should have better depth of knowledge. Did the Mountain Man Rendezvous die out with Bob Ward? Yeah, because that was just Bob's thing, is just to have everybody over and drink. He probably made everybody bring booze. The Mountain Man Rendezvous, I don't know how many of them, I think they went off and on, but they were, where were they? Were they at that one spot? That one spot they had him at. They had him at his place, and then they had another place, another drinking spot, and that was, yeah. So... but yeah, that pretty much went out with Ward. I think the rendezvous started with Joe Roboto and a whole different group of people, so there was no attachment there. There was nothing even. Treasure Hunt of the Year awards kind of worked out, started out with Salvador, but that had no attachment to Bob Ward either. It did a little with Chuck Crawford and Bob Ward and some of the other things. But that's just kind of like when he created, he wanted to create something more, felt like a club, the Victory Club, which was Veni Vidi Vici and the Ides of March, Where the Ides of March. And it was a little too much for me, what he did, but it is what it is. It's been around for 30 some odd years. It's just too late. But, so that had no attachment. So I think just once that was done, Bob having people come out and hang out and drink and stuff, and yeah, but I don't think it was a share thing. How do you access archived information? Well, the man's name is Greg Davis. He was one of the founders of the Lost Dutchman Museum. You look in the phone book. There's things called phone books still. And you find Greg Davis, who lives in Tempe, and you contact him. He is free. He's in the phone book, so he's fine to be contacted, and you call and leave a message. And Greg will get back to you, and he will talk to you. And if he deems correct, he has a huge archive. It has the Historical Society's archives. It has his own private collection and parts of everybody else's collections. It is a phenomenal amount of research, a testament to the man. We're talking rows and rows and rows. And it is quite the archive. And then you get in there, and then you become totally overwhelmed and go, holy crap. How do I find what I'm looking for? You can ask Greg, you can ask other Dutch hunters who've been through it, because that helps. But there's just so many files and so much information. There's a library of just Dutch hunting alone books. There's photo albums. There's newspaper articles. There's photo albums of hikes and stuff that everybody's taken that have contributed to. And we're talking bookshelves and rows of them. The complete Don's collection is in about 10 or 12 filing cabinets. 5 drawers high, big ones. There's a library. The library also consists of all treasure hunting magazines, of all the editions of all these different magazines, which is pretty comprehensive. And then there's a normal library. There's index card, there's audio stuff, and I've tried to go through as much as I can. Randy and Wright and I would go through it and then share what we found. So, but it is an enormous undertaking. So, but there is stuff in there that will change how your perception of a lot of things. And Greg doesn't even know what's in there because he does not have the time to go through everything that goes in there. He has the personal collections of Thomas Glover, Richard Peck, and just every Dutch hunter you can think of has stuff in there. So he has files on everybody. Yes, I can experience. Yeah, it is overwhelming because you don't know where to start, because you start pulling drawers and you start realizing how much crap is in here, and then you just keep walking around the corner and looking at the next thing. The fact that there's from the mid 1800s through current day albums with every newspaper related story in order on the Superstition Mountains and the Lost Dutchman mine, and it's binders and binders and binders. Everything you see, you just are going, wow. And there's artifacts laying around and other stuff. But yes, it is probably one of the hardest starting points because of the volume of stuff, but at the same time, it's very important because it gets you kind of like, Greg can always tell you where a good place to start. And I found so many great things just mixed up in files and looked at stuff and went, oh, man, Greg doesn't even know he has this. And some of the oldest known artifacts or maps and things are in Greg's collection. Map collections, all kinds of stuff. So there you go. Did the Hensleys have any mines? Don had the one up at the staircase, which was up by Ward's cabin. He did that one with Tom. He had several different ones, so you can find them. If you go into Maricopa and Pinal County, you should be able to find most of them and look under Don Hensley. But he had the staircase with Tom and a couple others up in there. So, yep, Duck is spitting facts. Sure, there was a lot of digging around Ward's cabin. Yeah, because one of the problems was one of his nephews talked about how Bob used to pay him to bury coins in jars. And what was funny is he talked to everybody at Rendezvous about it, so everybody went out there with metal detectors and was digging all over the place. Nobody found any of those jars of coins. Frank and I were going to try to get him out there and walk around with us and just show us familiar areas. Frank has several metal detectors that can basically track deeper. And we were going to use it, go through an area, grid an area off, and then go through with this other detector that would go deeper to see if there was anything there. And he never met us out there. It wasn't for any other reason than I think he was busy and stuff. And that was what I think we found it by Burns Ranches when they were cleaning those slopes out. They busted one of those jars digging somewhere, and who knows where it came from. And that's what I found when I found those silver dollars and stuff. I don't think it was Burns' treasure. I think it was Bob Ward's coins. What time is cool tomorrow? And do you need anything, ice water or soda? Well, you need your picnic lunch if you planned on eating and something to drink, because it's a bring your own picnic. Whatever you want to eat and stuff. So we'll be out there. I think I'm supposed to be there by 9. Is that what I think it is? I'm going to have to look it up. I think the hike starts. I don't know when the hike starts. That's going to be kind of more. All right, let's see here. I'll have to do this and look through the little wording here. Okay, Hole in the Rock. Ramada number 2. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. at Papago Park. And yeah, Don's always welcome people. I'm trying to encourage more, especially anything local, something like this, is get people to come out and meet some of the Dons and talk to Greg and myself and people. And so you can kind of see how interested you would be in this and hang out a little. So get that kind of thing in there. So that is purely you bring what you bring for you. Don't ask for mine, because I'm just bringing whatever's for me. But Greg will definitely be there. I will. I know some other people will. So we'll see with the weather and so forth. So there you go. It is almost time. Man, I made it. Every time I doubt myself and think, man, I might want to cut out early on this. It does look like it's getting dreary out there, though. It's definitely gray, and I see the wind kicking up. It's going to blow if it's blowing rain tomorrow. Why did I bring up a map? I wanted to bring up the weather. Okay, what do we got here? It's supposed to blow out of here in a bit, and that's it. So, it's showing what's coming in on me. Oh, I'm just catching the edge of something. Okay. So, cool. But we're going to start to wrap up here. So, yeah, I want to welcome people. We have a number of new people joining the Dons. Congratulations to Larry Akins, because he is now a member of the Dons Arizona officially. We had him put on the sombrero in his birthday suit at the meeting. No, he just got up and got to say, hi, I'm Larry. And everybody knew who he was. But we make it pretty easy. Hope you all don't get rained out. Enjoy your weekend. Yeah, I really hope we have a good weekend and all that. It will be nice. The Dons have held picnics at Papago Park since the 1930s, and that was Greg Davis's idea. Which is why, rain or shine, I will be out there, because that's kind of a cool thing for Greg to kind of go back in time when he was a kid in the 50s and did it. So I want to woof woof. But yeah, so everybody there. Good job, Larry. Larry didn't have to do much. We just said, hey, fill out that application, show up for a few things. But no, I think Larry's going to be a great active member. So now I can shove things off Dallas. We can start shoving things off on Larry, even more so now. Say, hey, okay, now, yeah. No, so there we go. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to, no, I'm not bringing the guitar. It's supposed to rain, dude. I'm not bringing one of these out there. I don't have that kind of guitar anymore. I have one, but it's kind of weird when you have that old beat up guitar, but then it becomes so priceless to you in a weird way that now you don't want to treat it like crap no more. You want to preserve that piece of crap. Well, I'm there with that one. So, and I'm definitely not bringing a couple of these up there. So we will see what goes on otherwise, though. But we can bring kazoos. There you go. All right. So there we go. Yeah, it did fly by pretty good, and everybody congratulating Larry. One of my best camping trips was the Superstition Mountains in summer. There was lightning thunder. That's the time when it'll really kick up. The lightning thunder happens in the summer. Being with your dad, that's even the cooler part. Oh, all right. So there. Thank you, everybody. Great one. We are at the 5 o'clock hour, so it's time. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's 4 o'clock somewhere. It's 3 o'clock somewhere, and it's time for me to get going. As far as the plan is, I will be back here for live next week, unless something else gets in my way. So we will, anybody we see out there, we will see out, and maybe we'll do a nice little group photo at Hole in the Rock. And that will actually be kind of cool. Something that I couldn't find anything in the Dons archives, but I'm sure somewhere along the line I'll find a Dons picture in the archives of the Dons at Hole in the Rock from the 30s or 40s. Great to see anybody I see out there. Hopefully I'll get some sleep and be better. And we will catch you the next time around. So thank you for watching. Thank you for making Chasing Legends and everything and continuing to support us. And we will catch you the next time around. I'm trying to figure out where the buttons are here. I got the buttons now. So thank you so much. We will catch you next week.